Yo, what's good YouTube? It's your boy Marcus Anagi Reacts, man, and we back at it with another video. Getting right into it, why you should watch / read One Piece by Super Eye Patch Wolf. Another banger from him. Make sure you check out his channel. I'll have the original link down below. That way you could also just check out Buddy's channel and look at the other cool stuff that he does as well. But hey, also this is 6 years old, so let's just enjoy it. Let's just sit here, soak some stuff in. There might be some facts maybe y'all don't know about, or maybe you like this video and you're watching it all over again. We just chilling here, we hanging out, good vibes, you feel me? After work vibes, you feel me? Let's just hop right into it. 3, 2, 1.
If I were to try and explain the appeal of long-running shonen storytelling, it would be that these are stories designed to go on for a very long time, and so we inevitably spend a much greater amount of time getting to know their worlds and characters, over the course of which the kind of relation we form with them inherently changes. As rather than being something consumed and then moved on from, these are series that sink into our daily routine and often become a constant, gentle, comforting background noise in the days that make up our lives. And this has been true for me for the vast majority of my life. There's rarely a time I am slowly working my way through one of these long-running series, the best of which have become some of my favorite stories I've ever experienced. But it's also a style of storytelling that seems inherently detrimental to itself. Even the very best in the industry have succumbed to the pressure of producing a long-running weekly manga, the eventual fatigue of which has caused even the most monstrously talented authors to either drastically reduce their release schedule or suffer a long-term drop in quality. And yet, there is one artist who, despite the intense lifestyle of being a weekly mangaka, still creates his story with the same energy and vigor as he did 2 decades ago, with a series that's still as loved by its fans now as it was at the heights of its popularity. That artist is Ichiro Oda, and that story is One Piece. The most notable thing I could say about One Piece in the modern day is that the
background song's kind of catchy.
Hats is still a blast, with many fans attesting that the current arc is one of the best in the series' history, and I'm inclined to agree. But the question is, how? How does a series stay interesting and relevant after 20 years? And what is it that makes its fans still so loyal to it? And if you've never read One Piece, what could possibly make the massive commitment of it worthwhile? The major advantage of having a long-running series is that it allows the author to communicate a much greater degree of information to the reader. And while this can often be to a series' detriment, with many artists forced to prioritize longevity over quality, in the right hands it can be used to build worlds of immense breadth and scale, ones with stories and characters that would be completely impossible in a shorter context. And this is the primary strength of Ichiro Oda as a writer, his ability to create and sustain a long-running narrative, and one of the primary ways he does this is by grounding his series in a tangible, believable world. While One Piece is at its heart the story of the Straw Hat Pirates and their quest for the treasure One Piece, it's the detours and locations along the way that make up the primary bulk of One Piece's story. Each new location in the journey of the Straw Hats has its own unique identity, with its own customs, cultures, economy, and inhabitants. And a huge part of the appeal of sailing the Grand Blue with the Straw Hats is uncovering these locations and discovering the mechanics of how they work. Oda has a way of giving even the most visually outlandish locations a tangible feeling of place and structure. Take for example Whole Cake Island from the most recent arc. It's a magical land where every inanimate object is alive and the buildings are constructed from confectionery. And at first it seems like a kind of Disney-esque paradise, until we find out later how the island became like this. Whole Cake Island is under the control of Big Mom, a massive hulking woman with the power to steal life directly from people and transfer it into everyday objects. A power she's used to transform the island into her own distorted wonderland, where no one can leave and people must sacrifice a segment of their lifespan as tax. This setup alone is already a pretty fascinating way to handle a location, but perhaps even more impressive is the detail that's gone into its creation. If you go to the One Piece wiki, you'll find pages of information about this one island alone, with detailed paragraphs on the 10 different locations that form it, including a floor-by-floor breakdown of Whole Cake Chateau, the home of Big Mom, including detailed descriptions of the first floor library, the fourth floor room of treasure, and the rooftop party hall. If you want to know what the weather is like on Whole Cake Island, where and how the residents get their food, or why there are skeletons near the seducing woods, all that information is there for you to dig out. In other words, Whole Cake Island has a tangible sense of geography about it. It feels real because Oda has taken the time to develop it. And what's more, this is just one of the many examples of the extremely fleshed out, developed locations that make up One Piece's world.
That's dark.
Zou is
to
a
make
massive
something
forest
so
filled
sweet,
with beast people located
but
on the back of a giant elephant, run by a fierce warrior dog during the day and an equally fierce warrior cat during the night. Dressrosa is a giant city with a massive gladiatorial arena inhabited by bizarre toy people, which are all under the heel of a vicious false king. Thriller Bark is a giant haunted ghost ship that literally eats other ships and turns their crew into zombies. And they've all been fleshed out to a similar degree as Whole Cake Island. And it all comes together to create not just the feeling of one singular massive world.
I want this map. I want this map as a poster. I want this map.
Thus applies to the many characters who populate
Captain Kuro?
No character in One Piece is ever constructed in isolation, but rather each individual one has their own allegiances, political geography, history, and driving motivators, many of whom have relationships and backstories entirely isolated from our heroes, like how 100 Beast Kaido and Gecko Moria have beef with each other due to the fact that Kaido was the one who killed Moria's entire crew, forcing him to create the undead army the Straw Hats face off against in Thriller Bark. These slices of character information are often revealed through what seem like tiny throwaway lines, only to become far more relevant to the story later on, to the point that I've lost entire afternoons trawling through the One Piece wiki, going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole, trying to understand how all these characters fit together.
And y'all think I'm gonna get spoiled from this? This is so much information, I'm like burning up right now. Spoilers where one geographical location has like a whole essay worth of information about it.
Of this, just look at the communities that have built up around its analyzation and discussion, such as the extremely popular One Piece podcast, currently on its 473rd episode, which discusses in extreme detail each new chapter, with episodes that regularly last over 2 hours. Meaning that even entirely separate from the central narrative of One Piece's story, it's still an utterly fascinating landscape to explore.
Ooh, I love that.
That isn't to say, however, that the story that takes place in One Piece's world isn't vital to its success. It absolutely is. But perhaps just as important as the story Oda tells is the unique way he tells it. Oda is a master in what we're going to refer to as short-term and long-term storytelling, and to really understand why One Piece has endured over the years like it has, we need to understand his work from these two distinct perspectives. Short-term storytelling accounts for the moment-to-moment experience of consuming a piece of narrative, how good a job an author has done in laying out their work that makes it pleasurable to consume. And while I can think of a few manga authors I would consider technically stronger illustrators than Oda, I can't think of any who have the same innate understanding of how to actually make reading a page of manga enjoyable. And even then, when I say there are technically stronger illustrators than Oda, that's not to take away from Oda's work as much as it is to highlight what's special about it. Rather than concentrating on intense rendering or meticulous anatomical correctness, Oda's work has a highly organic, expressive quality to it. He's a master at caricature and stylization, often accentuating the proportions and shapes of his characters to extremes for some of the most hilariously goofy but also strikingly unique designs in the industry. And yet he's also adept at depicting emotion through his drawings, namely by pushing the facial expressions of the different characters as far as they'll possibly go, joy, malice, desperation, sadness. He knows exactly how to depict the human face in order to give the reader the clearest possible conveyance not only of what a character is feeling, but just how intensely they are feeling it. In short, Oda is adept at conveying information through his images.
Just seeing the illustration of the panels
is crazy. To every aspect of his manga
emotion.
writing, including the unique way he lays out pages. Go to practically any part of One Piece and what you'll be met with are pages dense with visual information. While manga is of course a visual medium, many series are content to let the dialogue do the lion's share of the storytelling, with the visuals merely serving as an identifier for who is speaking or to highlight character designs.
Facts.
But with Oda, his pages are dense with visual data, with a lot of the world building communicated through images alone. Take this page in the city of Zou, for example. At no point does anyone point out that the Beastmen use the fruit of the giant trees as their homes. That's information you only get by taking the time to explore the page for yourself. And yeah, it's a small detail, but that's kind of the point. Oda's pages are packed with these little visual touches, whether it's a small gag taking place in the corner of a crowd scene, the appearance of a semi-obscure character from a previous chapter, or any number of strange, often hilarious one-off character designs. Oda is an expert at cramming as much visual information into a page as possible, and that means
it's not just him doing a story. Every panel means something to him. It's art, it's love, it's passion. I love that.
Especially considering the amount of text that are present at any given time.
Fuck, now I want to read it.
But what really helps keep this in check is Oda's command over the mechanics of how to guide a reader's eye around a page of manga. The creation of sequential events from a single image is something we talked about a lot in our Genius of Dragon Ball video, but Oda may be the only author I've ever come across with as solid a grasp of this as Toriyama, and in some cases I'd say even exceeds him. Take this 1.5 page spread for example. We start off on the right with the Mink Men getting angry at Zoro, then Zoro in return getting angry back, then Luffy responding to Zoro, this dog lady adding to Luffy's response, and then an entirely different conversation taking place on the other side of the room. That's 5 sequential events from a single unbroken panel. And this creates the illusion that as our eye travels from right to left here, time is actively moving with it, which makes it feel like this is an actual event unfolding before us, and not just a group of isolated incidents. And if you're skeptical of this, just look at how less engaging this scene is if we insert some panel breaks. The flow is lost, and so is that sense that we are observing an actual scene unfolding. Oda has used this technique so often and in such minor situations that it nearly seems like something he's doing habitually. But he also pushes it in ways that I've never really seen before, my personal favourite example of this being this depiction of 100 Beast Kaido jumping off Sky Island. We get this panel of a silhouette standing on a massive precipice before lunging forward to the world below. We turn the page or scroll down and we get this beautifully handled piece of visual storytelling. Starting at the top right of the page, we get these 3 panel breaks, which cause our eyes to linger for just a moment, creating the very slight sense of anticipation and distance, before following the trail of Kaido's fall down through the clouds.
That's actually super smart, because with those breaks in the panels, I can visually see how they would do that in like an anime or like even in a movie. It's like he's falling, break, like break, break, and then it's boom, like the big moment stretched out. Like I could see how that is, like if it was like this animated, I could see how that would work. But him doing that in a panel is crazy. Kaido's character design is so crazy. Like, that's a villain. That's a crazy, like, you don't want to smoke with someone like that.
Massive threat he's most likely going to become for the Straw Hats later on. And all this from not even half a page. And so,
like, it's epic through a panel. I want to read it now.
Incredibly engaged with the visual storytelling of his work.
Like every panel has so much like just depth. Like it feels like the art, it feels like it's moving almost.
It's only when Oda's expertise in short-term storytelling is coupled with his ability to write and sustain a long-running narrative that the true strength of his manga becomes obvious. One Piece is a long-running story, but I think what separates it from so many other stories of this type is that even from its earliest days, it was always designed to be this way. Oda has actually been writing different versions of One Piece since he was a child. After being inspired by the cartoon show Vicky the Viking, he would fill his school notebooks with a story he only referred to as pirate manga. And this pirate manga would eventually evolve into the short romance Dawn, which would eventually evolve into One Piece. So Oda has been thinking of this narrative and world for a very, very long time. Many of even the most recent characters in One Piece have existed in Oda's mind for years. You can go back through his old interviews and see just how far-thinking the story of One Piece actually is. Or even just look back at One Piece's early chapters and see the seeds that Oda has planted. For example, the character Silvers appears in a flashback in chapter 19, only to actually appear in the story and become a prominent character later on in chapter 500. And Oda constantly does this,
that guy was
seeding
godly
clues
looking
throughout the chapters of One Piece for us
Got
to
a bone to pick
discover
with
and
him.
theorize over.
Can't wait
Hell,
to
I
figure out
remember
who he
reading
is.
a blog post from 2015 that correctly predicted everything about Sanji's backstory that was revealed in the current arc, purely by virtue that his wanted poster said alive as opposed to dead or alive. Oda never feels like he's focused on just the next major arc or plot points, but instead on the long-running narrative of One Piece as a whole. And that's not even taking into account everything we don't know. As many of the threads as Oda has tied up during One Piece's run, there are so many more that are left tantalizingly open. How is it that Blackbeard is able to utilize two devil fruit powers at the same time? What was the gigantic Cthulhu-esque entity that appeared in the fog in the final panels of Thriller Bark? And my personal favourite, why in a nearly 900 chapter story about pirates has not a single character ever worn an eye patch? And of course, the biggest of all, what exactly is One Piece? The fact that Oda has so continuously delivered on these long-term planned
and this
payoffs
is 6 years ago.
means that it's
This
very
is an old
easy
video.
to believe that these
It's
are
still
questions
going.
with answers, meaning that there
And I
is
think
always
those same
an
questions are
island
still
on the
happening.
horizon of One Piece's narrative, always a breadcrumb trail to lead you to the next major story, and discovering where
want
these
these
trails
maps.
go and how intricately they're worked into the series overall makes reading One Piece extremely satisfying on a long-term basis. And so, One Piece is a beautifully entertaining experience in the short term, while also being highly rewarding on an entirely different level
And
in
this
the
is
long
weekly,
term.
bro?
And it's
this
these two
still
aspects
weekly? Is the
together that
manga still
explain why
weekly?
so much of One Piece's fan base has remained so loyal to the series over the years, and
As they
also a
should.
part of why so many people
I'm about to.
have become so invested in the characters of the Straw Hat Pirates. But before we dive into what makes Luffy and the crew so great, there's a little misconception I'd like to clear up first, and that is the criticism that One Piece has weak character writing because it lacks what people are referring to as character developments. And I think it's important to draw a line here and define the difference between character development and character progression. Character progression can also be referred to as the narrative arc of a character. They start at A and eventually end up at B. And it's a powerful storytelling tool, but not one that is required for good story. Take Cowboy Bebop, for example. There is little to no progression in any of its three central characters.
And that's the point of
Jet,
Cowboy
Spike, and
Bebop.
Faye don't learn
It's not
any
about
life
the
lessons
progression
from
of them
people,
learning.
and that is kind of the point.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean
it's
they
about
aren't
you understanding
developed.
the weight
Character development refers to how
of their
fleshed
past
out a
and how it's
character is,
impacting their future
history,
and present.
their goals, their strengths, their weaknesses, what their perspective on the world is, and how they came to view it that way.
You're growing with
And
them,
while there
essentially.
isn't a great degree of character progression among the Straw Hats, each and every one of them is extremely well developed. Each one with a highly distinctive personality, from the stark indifferent Zoro shows in most situations, to Frankie, Luffy, and Chopper's inexhaustible enthusiasm for the world around them. Each Straw Hat has their own unique charm, and each one has their own compelling and often heartbreaking histories. To this date, Brook's story of his final performance for his crew is about the only time I've ever cried while reading a manga. And fuck you, I'll cry whenever I damn well please. And even then, there is character progression, it just tends to happen very slowly. Just look at Usopp's journey from lying coward to Sniper King to actual competent member of the crew. As well written as the Straw Hat Pirates,
That might have been a
individually,
spoiler,
however,
but now
their
I
true
can't wait to
appeal
see
only comes
Sniper
when
King.
considered as a
Sniper
unit,
King.
when considered as the Straw Hat
No one told
Pirates.
me about no
And to
Sniper
understand
King.
why, we need to first
Now I like
understand
Usopp.
what being a pirate in One Piece's world actually means. The choice to become a pirate in One Piece means
Should I get
that
the
you've
should I get the
essentially
flag
decided
and put
to
it right
shirk
here?
off the constraints of society, choosing to live outside
Should I
world
get an
law
LED
and instead
of the
forging your
symbol
own
and
path
put it right
and
here?
creating
That'd be
your
dope.
own way of life.
Or just hang
And
like a
forming
pirate hat right here?
crew means
That'd be
that you
sick.
found a group of people willing to share in these values. In other words, you found friends willing to accept you for who you are and who will fight for your way of life. This is the concept of nakama that is so pervasive throughout One Piece, which translates roughly to friend, comrade, or crewmate, or as the One Piece fans have come to consider it, someone who is closer than family. And this
People in my comments been saying that to me, Nakama. And I never looked it up because I feel like I wanted to learn what that meant. And through this video, I now know why y'all in my comment section been saying Nakama. I'm telling y'all, bro. It's no longer Izanagi gang. It's Izanagi crew. We in this thing, you feel me? I'm gonna put a pirate hat right here. I'm gonna get Luffy's straw hat and I'm gonna put it right here. And I'm gonna hang it down this little part right here so it can be behind me. So I got the two Akatsuki clouds, the fucking Sharingan, and a Luffy hat right there. I think that's worthy of what this channel is becoming. Yup. 100%. 100%. Me understanding now why y'all been putting that in my comments, low-key made me almost tear up a bit. But let's just keep going.
This is the bond shared by
Grateful
Luffy
for
and
y'all.
the rest of
Grateful
the Straw
for y'all.
Hats. It's obvious that each one in their own way is both proud and delighted to be part of the crew. They like spending time with each other and exploring the world together, and this is something consistently reinforced by Oda in his many coloured illustrations.
Zoro
of
and
Straw
Asu go
Hats,
crazy.
most of which depict them just hanging out and having a good time. And I love these pages because they really get across the camaraderie felt by these characters and the friendship they share. Each member of the Straw Hats also has their deeper reasons for wanting to be part of the crew, as each member has at some point lost someone extremely close to them, and that event usually causes them to lose their place within the world, a place they eventually only rediscover upon joining the crew. And I think this only furthers the appeal of the Straw Hats. They're a group of friends who have found each other in a massive sprawling world and who value that friendship more than anything. And over the course of One Piece, it's hard not to feel drawn into this dynamic yourself, like you aren't in some small way part of the crew. And I think this is a primary reason why so many people feel such a strong emotional investment in the familial concept that is the Straw Hat Pirates. But it's also this same emotional investment that Oda leverages in order to create the most dramatic moments of tension and conflict within One Piece's story. While Luffy and Co face many dangers throughout their voyage, nothing ever feels as high stakes as when the unity of the Straw Hats is threatened. There's various points in the journey when, due to either external or internal factors, a member of the crew will decide to leave of their own accord, and these inevitably become some of the most emotionally impactful moments of the entire series. One such example is early on in the fantastic Water 7 arc. After sustaining repeated damage over the course of the journey, Luffy decides that it's time to condemn the crew's old ship, the Going Merry, a decision that Usopp takes umbrage with, as up until this point he has been the one maintaining the ship, but it's obvious that his actual real worry is that he too will eventually be left behind by the Straw Hats. Tempers flare and the situation quickly spirals out of control, as Usopp declares to the shock of the others that he's decided to leave the Straw Hats, and it culminates in a brutal showdown between Luffy and Usopp to decide which one will take ownership over the Going Merry. It's one of the best fights of the entire series, but what always stays with me about it is the visible effect the encounter has on the rest of the crew, each one visibly shaken by the violent clash of their captain and former friend. As nothing is more upsetting to these characters than the breakdown of the family they've
I haven't
all
seen this
grown
yet.
to be a part of. It's a
Wow.
beautifully sad episode, and one I really encourage you to go check out. It's one of the better produced episodes of the anime, and even if you have no interest in consuming the rest of One Piece, this is a great example of how strong the character writing in the series can actually be. The other major example of how well Oda handles his characters can be seen in how he establishes the many villains of One Piece's world. In the same way, he can utilize a character's backstory to establish an incredible amount of tragedy and sympathy. He's equally capable of utilizing the same technique to create a palpable, justified sense of fear and danger within a character. My personal favorite example of this being the terrifying Don Quixote do Flamingo. Now, we spent way too much time in the last video going through a character's backstory, and this video is already insanely long, so unfortunately, we don't really have time to go through it. So, moving quickly along, God fucking damn it, okay, I can't help myself, here we go. Don Quixote do Flamingo was born to the most elite class of family, known only as the World Nobles or Celestial Dragons. A class of people of such wealth and power that they can commit atrocities in public without any fear of legal repercussion. A young Doflamingo greatly valued this elite status, until one day his father declared that the family would be abandoning their life of excess and lordship in exchange for living an honest life as regular people, and in doing so disregarded their noble status. A decision they'd come to regret. Banished from the sacred land of Merios, the family began their new life as regular citizens, only to return to their home one night to find it set ablaze. Word had spread to a nearby village about the noble family no longer under government protection, and it brought out the seething, long-term hatred its people felt for the Celestial Dragons. A hatred that took the form of a series of violent assaults against Doflamingo and his family. Persecuted and driven from their home, the family were forced to take refuge in squalor, eating only garbage to survive. There, their father, now desperate and afraid, contacted the World Nobles in the hopes of returning his terrified family to Merios, but he was met with only scorn, and he and his family were abandoned to the cruel world they had chosen to become a part of. The continuing ordeal slowly took its toll on Doflamingo's mother, who grew more ill with each passing day until eventually her life slipped away. And just as it seems like the remaining family had nothing left to lose, they were once again attacked by the scornful villagers, only this time they were captured, tied to their former burning mansion and tortured. The experience awakened within Doflamingo a great rage, a rage that manifested itself in the form of his Emperor's Haki, which he used to subdue the villagers and save his remaining family. But at this point, Doflamingo was so consumed with the hatred for the people who tormented him, hatred for the Celestial Dragons that abandoned his family, and even hatred for his own father, whom he blamed for the entire ordeal. This would later result in Doflamingo killing his father and vowing to one day take everything that the Celestial Dragons have built up and burn it to the ground, his rage manifesting in a twisted grin as he declared war on all of existence. And this is the man that Luffy and the crew must face in the Dressrosa arc. This is the kind of writing that makes so many of the villains from One Piece so compelling, but also gives the eventual conflicts between Luffy and these characters such weight and drama, to the point that I would say I don't actually find the bigger fights in One Piece as well written or choreographed as encounters from other series, but it hardly seems to matter due to what an excellent job Oda has done in framing these encounters in the emotion of their characters. Take the monumental showdown between Luffy and Rob Lucci, for example. What really makes this fight work is less so the tactics or actions of the characters, but more the clashing of the two's diametrically opposed emotions and ideology. Luffy is, of course, the embodiment of adventuring and free spirit, the belief that people should be allowed to pursue their dreams without worry or constraints, and Rob Lucci is the crushing wall of reality that stands in the way of all that. The personification of the faceless world government that seeks to regulate and control every aspect of society. And this setup lends real narrative weight to every blow of the encounter. So finally, it is of course only fair to mention what I consider some of One Piece's weaker points. And the biggest by far is the handling of the anime.
What the hell is that?
I do actually find it more tolerable than most, with some of the action scenes having some genuinely fantastic animation. But the production does drop a lot outside these moments, and that coupled with some truly awful pacing means that it's hard to recommend the anime as anything other than a companion piece to the manga. While Oda is exceptional at creating a wide variety of characters with all manner of shapes and body types, he does draw a lot of his girl characters very, very similar. And while I like sexy characters in my anime, this is one of the few areas of the series that feels phoned in. In other words, I think Oda has it in him to do better with his fan service. The pacing of One Piece can be sometimes jarring to the point that it's a little frustrating.
Subjective.
It's
really
common for the
care.
focus to shift from character to character, with many fights occurring simultaneously. And while this sometimes creates a great sense of spectacle and chaos, it can also kill the momentum of a particular encounter, cutting away just as things are getting heated. And again, this is a problem way worse in the anime. The biggest barrier to entry, however, has to be its extreme length. Anyone new to the series could spend months and even years trying to catch up on it, and wait many more for its eventual conclusion. But I think, in a way, this is also the series' biggest strength. When I think of what I love about One Piece and what keeps me coming back, it isn't the eventual promise of finding out what One Piece is, or the conclusion to arcs that I know are most likely dozens of chapters away, but rather, it's just the opportunity to return to this world and spend more time with these characters. To see them fight and struggle and chase their dreams, and in turn, see how the world's many moving parts react to them. This is the kind of story that could only be told over years. One carefully built over hundreds and hundreds of chapters, where each corner of its world feels realized, and yet where each horizon still brims with potential. And if you're new to One Piece, this is the reason I think it's still a commitment so worth making. As it's a story to get lost in, one to grow up alongside, and one with worlds and characters that will stay with you for years to come. And this, friends, is the best reason I can think of why you should watch / read One Piece.
This was an amazing video. I'm assuming that's it, right? That was an amazing video. Super Eye Patch Wolf. That was an amazing video, bro. And your voice is crazy. I'll say that shit right now. I have thoughts that I want to wrap this up with real quick, though, in a second. Hold up. That was that was a really crazy video. There were a lot of spoilers in it. There were. And you can be, you know, over analytical about it and be like, bro, just watch it. Stop watching all these other episodes of random stuff, blah, blah, blah. Dude, all I gotta say is, and I'm not always gonna defend it, but it's like, dude, you can't spoil me on this journey, bro. Like, I genuinely want to watch One Piece. I genuinely want to grow with Luffy and the crew. I genuinely want to share my experience with y'all as a community. I genuinely want to reach the end. And I really don't even think the end is the end. I don't think there is no end to this. And the idea of that just sounds unfathomable. And I don't think this series is about quote-unquote spoilers. Like, I don't think you can be spoiled on just like every single thing on this show. Like, I don't think, like, you could spoil Naruto, truthfully. You could spoil it. But it doesn't, like, I don't think you could just spoil something in One Piece and it's just gonna just turn off everything else. There's too much depth in every character, every geographical landmark, every sea, every island. Like, there's too much. Like, you could spoil even a huge thing and it's gonna be infinitesimally small to whatever the plot line of this crazy story is that I still don't know. You know what I'm saying? I haven't even met half these people. You know, yeah, you could say I just got spoiled on a couple things, especially on like Flamingos, dude. But dude, you're gonna be mad at me for being spoiled about that? That just made me want to watch that even 10 times more. I've already established that I wanted to watch, that I'm in this a lot for, like, initially because of Shanks and because of Zoro and because of Sanji, as like I know they're like the badass characters. Obviously also because of Luffy, but besides Luffy, like Blackbeard, fucking like the Flamingo dude, Kaido, Big Mom, like dude, come on, bro. Like there's too much. There's too much. Like if anything, this is like overloading my circuits. Like this is what I want. This is the whole point of me watching these things, is that I am injecting just straight up like One Piece love into my veins, bro. Like you could, I wouldn't be watching these if I didn't care about watching. Like this even enticed me to read the damn thing. Like I'm enticed to actually read this now, to where I'm at in the anime, because now I want to actually see the illustrations and like nitpick and look at all the things in the background and stuff. Like videos like this deserve to be viewed, and I'm gonna watch them because that was an amazing video. That made me 10 times more hyped to find the One Piece with the crew, with y'all, with Izanagi crew, you feel me? Hey, I could keep rambling because this just made me like, I'm not even like trying to hide my grin, my smile right now. This was a good video. That gave me what I needed today. That gave me my serotonin for today. This video. Can't wait to keep going, bro. Too much to say. Too little words to use. It's just overall just wow, amazing, beautiful, gorgeous, all those stupid words that don't even fractionally make up how, like, can really fully explain or describe how I feel right now, other than this show is fucking already peak. Like this really broke it down to you, and it said the cons. It was like, yo, I'm gonna tell you everything. Like I'm gonna let you know like what to expect. It's gonna be gas, but it's gonna be slow. So because it's really slow, you might not want to watch it. And this was him 6 years ago. It's still going, you know. I honestly feel like this is the perfect show for me, because I want to get engulfed in this parallel universe, this world, this different, this fiction. It's just like I want to gravitate towards it. I want to be a part of it. I want to explore with them. It's a breathing, living organism. It's a real thing. It's a real place, you know. It's just, it oozes information, and I want to know everything about it. Like what, there's a podcast, there's a wiki One Piece, there's, you know what I'm saying, the manga is packed filled with panels of different fluidity and information. Like come on now. There's maps. I want those maps as posters. I want a map. But hey, to Oda and to Super Eye Patch Wolf for making this video. Hey, I'm gonna just wrap it up here. Thank y'all for tuning in. You know what I'm saying? I'd appreciate it if you liked, comment, subscribed, shared. You know what I'm saying? Interacted with the community tab section. Even if you just watched. Even if this is the only thing you watched. If you made it to the end right now, I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in. It means the world to me. I'm gonna catch up. Don't worry. Don't worry. Izanagi crew, you feel me? We new to the game too. Hey, I'm with Luffy right now. I'm still trying to get through the Grand Line right quick. You know what I'm saying? Me with crew, me with gang, you feel me? We new to the space, you know what I'm saying? But we gonna catch up. It's about the journey and the progression ahead. It's not about the finish line. This isn't a race. This is a marathon. And I'm here for every speed bump along the way. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. Catch y'all the next video. Deuces.